trying to render service, performing worship, offering obeisances, becoming a servant, becoming a friend, and surrendering one's whole self. O King Yudhisthira, these 30 qualifications must be acquired in the human form of life. Simply by acquiring these qualifications, one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, these 30 are embedded in the 4 universal principles of spirituality: austerity, cleanliness, truthfulness, mercy. So the first 3 were truthfulness, mercy, austerity. And all the rest of them you could classify as cleanliness. Internal cleanliness and external cleanliness. Well, external cleanliness is covered by bathing at least twice a day, brushing your teeth, cutting your fingernails, all those things. However, internal cleanliness, that is like tolerance, discrimination between right and wrong, control of the mind, control of the senses, nonviolence, celibacy, charity. You see? So the 4 universal principles are summarized, these 30 points. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, in order that human beings be distinct from the animals, the great Saint Narada recommends that every human being be educated in terms of the above-mentioned 30 qualifications. So we can say, therefore, that most people in the world today are animals, not actually human beings, because they're not following these 30 qualifications for qualifying as a human being. Yeah. Microphone. One second.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
My question here is, when in general discussion, like in my family, or a general discussion with normal people who are not too much attached to the temple, if we talk, what
like
we have
this?
if you read this one, so they say that this is Kali Yuga, and Kali Yuga cannot have, people cannot have this type of properties. It's not meant for this one. If you have these qualities, you cannot survive. People will eat you up.
Will eat you up?
Eat you up. They will take advantage of you. That's what it means. And you cannot survive in this society at all if you try to follow these things. And it's meant for, not for this era, that is Kali Yuga.
Well, that is a false argument. What mother or father would not want their child to be tolerant, discriminate between right and wrong, control the mind, control the senses, be, in general, nonviolent, be able to maintain celibacy inside or outside of marriage? Celibacy doesn't mean you have no children, it just means you only use sex, and that's going to be explained here now. You only use sex for procreation. And be charitable, read scripture, live a simple life, honest, simple life, have satisfaction, render service to saintly persons, give up unnecessary engagements, observe the futility of the unnecessary activities of human society. In other words, baseball games, football games, cricket games, casinos, movies, nude or pornographic programs, etc. Observe, remain silent and grave, and avoid unnecessary talk. Consider whether one is the body or soul. Distribute food equally to all living entities. See every soul, especially in the human form, as part of the Supreme Lord. Hear about the activities and instructions given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Oh, anyway, you get the idea. These are not bad things. A mother or father would be proud of their child if they had these qualities. You see my point? These are not qualities that are impossible to attain or develop. This is what parents want their children to develop, especially tolerance, discrimination between right and wrong. They try and teach this in schools even, but they teach it in the wrong way, right? And like, for example, they have classes nowadays for adults in avoid what do you call it, sexual discrimination based on orientation of people. So you're not supposed to make fun of or in any way harass people who are homosexuals or lesbians and transgendered. And now there's like about more than 20 designations of people who have some kind of gender identification that's not what we would consider normal, right? And they teach kids about all of these differentiations, and so that they will not be prejudiced against such things. So they're trying to redefine what is right and what is wrong. Okay. Anyway, these qualities are qualities that a parent would want their child to have, right? But I understand their argument. In other words, you would not be successful in this world today if you developed these qualities. Well, that is not true either. Let's take a look at Srila Prabhupada. Did he have these qualities? What do you think?
No.
Yes. Was he successful?
Yes.
So, where's the problem? He's tremendously successful. Does Narada Muni have these qualities?
Yes.
Yeah, he's the one that's teaching it. Is he successful? More successful than anybody we know in the history of the world. So, does Krishna have these qualities?
Yeah.
Is he successful?
Yeah.
Did Lord Ramachandra have these qualities?
Yeah.
Is he successful?
Yeah, he's successful.
Did Ravana have these qualities?
No.
Was he successful?
No.
For a short time, but in the end he was not. So, on what factual basis are they basing their opinion? You see, there's no factual basis. It's just another fake theory. Yeah.
Each word mentioned here, for that they have a different definition.
Okay.
So that's the point here, basically.
Yes. Well, they would say each one of these points is a point of weakness, not a point of power or strength.
For example, for them, meat eating may be right. For example, for honesty, they may think that if it is harming them, then they should speak anything what they like to have gains out of it. So that's honesty for them.
Okay.
So
well, there's always going to be differences of opinion, but we have to depend on the words of genuine acharyas like Narada Muni, not the theories of the confused and the bewildered. Okay, so nowadays there is propaganda everywhere all over the world for a secular state, a state interested only in mundane activities. Yesterday, when the presentation was made, I said that we should be careful about using the word secular. And Govinda Chandra, was it Govinda Chandra? Yeah, anyway, he questioned me about that. And I said, look, there's a difference between the word secular and non-sectarian. It's better to use the word non-sectarian. Say that Ananda Mela is a non-sectarian festival rather than a secular festival. Secular has the meaning that there's no connection with any religion. But non-sectarian means we don't differentiate against any religion. See? So at Ananda Mela, we're not trying to make it a religious festival. It's a cultural festival. Culture means education. But it is also, but the managers are not, let's say, prejudiced against any sect. They just are. It's non-sectarian. We're not arbitrarily deciding this one is good, that one is bad. So people can understand that more clearly. Usually people confuse the word secular with non-sectarian. And they use the word secular, but yes.
I know from where he's coming from, that secular word.
Yes.
In India, this is how we differentiate actually. Like they say BJP is non-secular. And
what is non-secular?
No, BJP party.
Oh, BJP.
Yeah. And other parties like Congress and other parties are secular parties.
Yes. Yes.
So he has learned that word, and it's in his dictionary or every Indian dictionary. This is how we differentiate. We don't have other words in our dictionary, means in vocabulary.
Yeah.
So that's how he came with that word.
Okay. That's how he came with that word? You mean?
And that's my understanding. That yes.
Yeah, but see, there would be
we are
a
under
mistake to say we're secular. I mean, it says no relation to any religion. You know, no, completely divested of any religion, because embedded in Vedic culture is spirituality. Then again, you have to differentiate between spirituality and religiousness. Religion is a faith. Now, your faith might be in the organic potato as God, right? But my faith might be Krishna as God. So we can argue indefinitely based on our faith. But Vedic culture is about universal spirituality, and as defined by 4 principles: mercy, cleanliness, truthfulness, austerity. So now there's a difference between religion and universal spirituality. Just as there is a difference between secular and non-sectarian. Yeah. So, but if the citizens of the state are not educated in the above-mentioned good qualities, how can there be happiness? For example, if the total populace is untruthful, how can the state be happy? Therefore, without consideration of one's belonging to a sectarian religion, whether Hindu, Muslim, Christian, okay, so here Prabhupada used the word sectarian. That means a sect that has a particular religious faith. right? Such as Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or any other sect. Everyone should be taught to become truthful. So, in the first 4 sentences of this paragraph, he used the word secular state, and he defined it as a state interested only in mundane activities. That's why we should. Yesterday, Govinda Chandra used. He said in his publicity, he is telling people that Ananda Mela is a secular festival. Right? That is incorrect. It's not a secular festival. It's a cultural festival. That's the correct way to present it. So secular means, at least as Prabhupada understands it, a state interested only in mundane activities, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Nothing else. Then he uses the word sectarian. He says, therefore, without consideration of one's belonging to a sectarian religion, whether Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or any other sect, everyone should be taught to become truthful. Well, why does he say that? This is very interesting now. Let's analyze this. He's saying everyone should be taught to be truthful. And he's comparing that to the idea that, or he's implying that one may not be completely truthful if they belong to a sectarian religion, such as Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or any other sect. He's not implying it, but he's putting, everyone should be taught to be truthful without consideration that they belong to some sect, such as Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist. Now, this is a very important concept. We should focus on this now. So, if there's a Hindu, or Muslim, or Christian, or Buddhist, and we say, we analyze the phrase, thou shalt not kill. It's one of the 10 commandments. Can you look up which commandment it is? Thou shalt not kill. I think it's number 5, but I'm not sure. So, he's saying, without considering what sect you belong to, you should be truthful. So, can we be truthful if we say, thou shalt not kill, but yet we're killing billions of living entities to eat them, such as fish? They kill over 1 billion fish every year. Or chickens, they kill over 1 billion chickens a year. Or cows, they kill over 60 to 80 million cows a year. So that question should be analyzed. So how do they justify killing all these animals to eat? If the commandment is thou shalt not kill. Yes?
It's very simple, Prabhu. Just change the definition of the words. And that's what's happening nowadays, every day, everywhere. Change the definition, teach that to the public through public schools, and that's what is happening. So what is wrong, they think that is right.
Yes, that's right. Yes, Prabhuji. What? Number 6. It's the 6th commandment in the Bible. Thou shalt not kill. Right? So it's the same commandment for the Muslims and the Jews and the Christians. It's the same Bible, and it's from the Old Testament. It's from before Christianity. Thou shalt not kill. Right? But somehow or other, each one of these religions has found a way to justify it. This is what is amazing. That's why Prabhupada is saying here, he's brilliant. He says, it doesn't matter which sect you belong to. And he's not just saying these 4 sects, he's saying any sect of religion. One should be truthful. he's saying, how can there be, it says, if the citizens of the state are not educated in the above-mentioned good qualities, how can there be happiness? For example, if the total populace is untruthful, how can the state be happy? You see. And then he says, therefore, without consideration of one's belonging to a sectarian religion, whether Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or any other sect, everyone should be taught to become truthful. Now, the first people that should be truthful are the priests of the religions. You see. But they're the ones that are teaching their particular followers that it's okay to eat meat. Just like I told the story yesterday, my son, one of my sons was going to a Buddhist temple in Redmond, and the priests there eat meat. So he said, how come you eat meat? He said, it's very, very beneficial for the animal that we eat. In the next life, they'll have human birth. It's completely wrong. It's completely wrong. See, previously, Brahmins were allowed to sacrifice animals. And after the animal died, they had the power to bring the animal back to life. And in the next life, that animal would take birth as a human being. And then now fast forward today, the Buddhist priest is saying, not all Buddhist priests say this, in this particular sect of Buddhism, this is what they preach. Like the Dalai Lama sect, he also eats meat. And their justification is, when the priest eats the flesh of the animal, the next life the animal takes human birth. And that's completely different than the Vedic understanding. Although, for someone who just doesn't pay attention, they say, well, that sounds like the same thing. It's not the same thing. You have to bring the animal back to life after you kill it. And then in the next life of the animal, after it dies naturally, it will take birth as a human being. You see. Similarly, everyone should be taught to be merciful, and everyone should observe fasting on certain days of the month. In other words, they should practice austerity. Everyone should bathe twice a day, cleanse his teeth and body externally, and cleanse his mind internally by remembering the holy name of the Lord. So this cleanliness includes cleansing the mind. And cleansing the mind, that means you have to control the senses, nonviolence, tolerance, celibacy. Celibacy means no illicit sex. So there are many different aspects of illicit sex. It's not just the physical act. The physical act is one. Seeing it is two. Hearing about it is three. Thinking about it is four. Planning for it is five. And there's some more aspects of illicit sex. All those are illicit sex. It's not just the act of illicit sex. So when you get into the details of this, you see that cleanliness includes all of that. You cannot have a clean mind if you're planning for, dreaming about, desiring, hearing about, imagining. That's another aspect of illicit sex. So you take all those aspects of illicit sex, all of that is contamination of the mind, or uncleanliness. Everyone should bathe twice a day, cleanse his teeth and body externally, and cleanse his mind internally by remembering the holy name of the Lord. The Lord is one, whether one is Hindu, Muslim, or Christian. In other words, he's saying the Hindus, the Muslims, the Christians. Notice he doesn't say Buddhist here, because Buddhists don't believe that there is a God. But the Hindus, the Muslims, and the Christians, all three religions, believe that there's God, or some kind of God. Yes?
What they considered Buddha?
Buddha was asked specifically, is there a God? And he didn't answer that question. He left it open.
They consider Buddha as God because in their temples they have Buddha.
There's different sects of Buddhism. There might be one sect that consider him or worship him like a god. They might not consider him God, but they worship him like God. They do the same things that Hindus do in the temple. You see, there's two major, let's say, divisions of Buddhism. It's called Mahayana and Hinayana. By the way, we can look that up, Prabhu. Mahayana, Hinayana. Two different divisions of Buddhism. And see if you can find out what the difference is. Mahayana, Hinayana. One is the major part of Buddhism, and the other is a minor part. And the minor part, if I'm not mistaken, they worship Buddha like a god without considering him God, but they worship him like a god. See, Buddhism is how you can become like a god by self-improvement. That's what Buddhism is all about. But they don't believe in the soul, they believe in the mind. And they believe that the material nature was never created, it's always existed. Okay. They believe in the heavenly planets, like the Deva planet. They don't believe in like Vaikuntha, that's eternal. In fact, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada outlines 10 fundamental beliefs of Buddhism. We'll go over that one of these days. So, between the different sects of Buddhists, there are different ideas, and there, in fact, there's one book that Tamal Krishna Maharaj wrote about a sect of Buddhism in China that looks very much like Vaishnavism. What?
It's called Yoga for the 21st Century.
Yeah. You read that book?
I'm reading.
Huh?
I'm reading.
So did you see the description of that sect in China that's like Vaishnavism?
I just at the beginning of the book.
Yeah, it's not in that book. It's another book that he wrote. It was that it's actually his different assignments he had when he was getting his PhD.
Yeah, it's the same book.
It is? Okay, but you didn't read that part.
Yeah, I didn't read that part.
Okay, well, bring that book in. Show it to me. Okay, so did you find out, Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhu.
Go ahead.
So this is one explanation. So it says one way to think of it is that Hinayana is based on what the Buddha said, where Mahayana is based on what the Buddha did. Another way to think of it is that Hinayana emphasizes experiences of emptiness of self, whereas Mahayana emphasizes experience of love and compassion. A third way to see it is that Hinayana were traditionalists, feeling that everything must literally be just as the Buddha said in his own time, including the extensive rules for monks, and the Mahayana were willing to adapt changing conditions, letting monks adapt their robes to travel to cold countries, grow their own food, touch money, with changing the presentation style of the Buddha's teaching to reach a wider audience. Fourth, Hinayana emphasized the Pali canon with the historic Buddha discourses in the Pali language. Mahayanas emphasized the sutras and commentary and interpretations of later teachers in Sanskrit and later languages. Fifth, Hinayana emphasized doing meditation and righteous conduct, as well as study of Pali canon. Mahayana emphasized several things depending on the tradition, including but not limited to sutra study, mantra meditation, visualization, prayers, rituals, and relations to a teacher.
Okay, so then the more religious-looking or Vaishnava-looking sect in China would be considered part of the Mahayana tradition, where they adapt things, whereas the Hinayana is strict fanatic adherence to Buddha's statements, right? Is that right? One believes in the statements, the other believes in the what? What?
Is in the statement, in what the Buddha said.
That's Hinayana?
That's
The first one you read.
one. Hinayana is based on what the Buddha said,
Yes.
and Mahayana is based on what the Buddha did.
Did, yeah. Okay, anyway, we'll come back to that at another time. Similarly, everyone should be taught to be merciful, and everyone should observe fasting on certain days. Everyone should bathe twice a day, cleanse his teeth and body externally, cleanse his mind internally by remembering the holy name of the Lord. The Lord is one, whether one is Hindu, Muslim, or Christian. Therefore, one should chant the holy name of the Lord, regardless of differences in linguistic pronunciation. So, when the Chinese chant Hare Krishna, they can't say K, so they say Hare Krishna. So, and then when the Spanish-speaking people, they say Hare, they don't say H, they say Yare. So Prabhupada says it doesn't matter in the linguistic pronunciation, differences in linguistic pronunciation. Also, everyone should be taught to be very careful not to discharge semen unnecessarily. This is very important for all human beings. If semen is not discharged unnecessarily, one becomes extremely strong in memory, determination, activity, and the vitality of one's bodily energy. Everyone should also be taught to be simple in thought and feeling and satisfied in body and mind. These are the general qualifications of a human being. There is no question of a secular state or an ecclesiastical state. Whoa, now Prabhupada gets even more specific. An ecclesiastical state is based on a particular religion. Just like the United States is a non-secular government, although it says in God we trust, but it does not promote one religion over the other, although it's based a lot on Christianity, but a loose interpretation of Christianity by the English philosopher John Locke. So there's no question of a secular state or an ecclesiastical. So a secular state is a state in which it does not promote any religion. It's just, as Prabhupada says, it's a state interested only in mundane activities. Okay? An ecclesiastical state is a state that promotes one religion, like Iran is a Islamic state, so Saudi Arabia is an Islamic state. They promote one religion, it's Islam, or their interpretation of Islam. So if he says, so what if we took over a government or a country? Would we institute a ecclesiastical state where Krishna consciousness is state religion?
No, brother.
No. But what would we do?
We should
Is
Hare
Hare Krishna.
the points
Is Haribol.
whatever points we have here, which Narad Muni has said, honesty, truthfulness, and all those things, we should implement those things on the public and make sure they follow those principles, because these are journal principles
Yes.
to become happy. So once they become happy, they will appreciate, and whatever they want to think about their religion, they can do it. But once they practice all these principles, automatically they will be following Krishna consciousness, because this is what Krishna consciousness is.
Truthfulness, mercy, austerity, cleanliness. 4 universal principles. Right? So what kind of state would we have? We would have a state based on Vedic culture. And these 30 points are a major part of the Vedic culture, right? To distinguish a human being from an animal. People who don't control their discharge of semen, people who are not tolerant, or so forth. So therefore, that would be a non-Vedic culture. Unless one is educated in the above mentioned 30 qualities, there cannot be any peace. So, this is something the United Nations should understand. Right? They're trying to bring about peace in the world, but through politics, not through promoting these 30 qualities. Ultimately is recommended. Shravanam kirtanam chasya smaranam mahatam gate sevej yavan natir dasyam sakyam atma samarpanam. Everyone should become a devotee of the Lord, because by becoming a devotee of the Lord, one automatically acquires the other qualities. So whether one is a Christian or a Muslim, a Jew, or a Hindu, or a Buddhist, one should become a devotee of the Lord. So what does that mean? That means that they engage in devotional service for the Lord. So there are aspects of bhakti in Hinduism, definitely, in Christianity, definitely, in Islam, definitely. They all talk about serving the Lord. And they all talk about one God. When we get to Buddhism, they have seva as part of their religion. But who is it directed toward? That's the question. And then you have all other sects such as Jainism, Sikhism, and they all have aspects of seva in their religion. But then again, the question is it who is it meant for? Right? But here it's saying if one becomes a devotee of the Lord, then automatically they acquire all these other qualities, the 30 qualities. And then it's explained. And then this important verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam: Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavat yakinchana sarva gunais tatra samasate sura harava bhaktasya kuto mahad guna manoratinasati tahavato bayi. In one who has unflinching devotional service to Krishna, all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods are consistently manifest in that person. However, he who has no devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no good qualifications, because he is engaged by mental concoction in material existence, which is the external feature of the Lord. Our Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, is all-embracing. Notice he doesn't say our Krishna consciousness religion. He says the Krishna consciousness movement is all-embracing. Human civilization should take it very seriously and practice its principles for the peace of the world. In other words, Krishna consciousness is all-embracing. It includes everything that these other religions are teaching and more. And in a unadulterated form. So this is a big, let's say, declaration Prabhupada is making. So some people say, well, wait a minute, your guru is saying you shouldn't have an ecclesiastical state, but actually he wants to establish a Hare Krishna state. That's ecclesiastical. Is that true? Ecclesiastical means it's a religious state, like Iran or Saudi Arabia or some of these other places. Is that true? What is the difference between an ecclesiastical state and a Hare Krishna state? An ecclesiastical country and a Hare Krishna country. What is the difference? Okay, look up the word ecclesiastical, Prabhu. Ecclesiastical, E-C-C-L-E-S-I-A-S-T-I-C-A-L, ecclesiastical. It's going to mean it's based on some particular religion. Again, is Krishna consciousness a religion? No, it's not a religion.
It says relating to the Christian church or its clergy.
Well, look at the second definition.
Suitable for use in a church.
Look at the third definition. Does it have a third definition?
No, there isn't one.
What?
I'm just searching.
It doesn't have a third definition.
So it says clerical, non-secular.
Okay. Yeah. So in other words, non-secular means a religion, based on some kind of a religion. Traditionally, it was Christianity, but it's when it says non-secular, it means any type of religion. So, is Krishna? Therefore, I asked the question: is Krishna consciousness a religion? No. Then, what is Krishna consciousness? It's a culture. It's based on promoting Vedic culture. It's like we have Vedic Cultural Center. This is a place where we promote and practice the Vedic culture. So what is the Vedic culture? Well, it's based on 4 universal principles of spirituality. Right? And those principles are austerity, truthfulness, cleanliness, and mercy. Right? And these 30 points that differentiate a human being from an animal, the first 3 are truthfulness, mercy, austerity, and the rest are grouped under cleanliness. When it says offering obeisances, becoming a servant, becoming a friend, surrendering one's whole self, controlling the mind, tolerant, discrimination between right and wrong, celibacy, non-violence, all these are points of cleanliness, internal cleanliness. There's external cleanliness that we understand what it is. It's bathing twice a day at least, cutting your fingernails, brushing your teeth, shaving your head, all these things, cleanliness. And then internal cleanliness includes all these other things. Remaining silent and grave and avoiding unnecessary talk, considering whether one is the body or the soul, distributing food equally to all living entities, both men and animals, seeing every soul, especially in the human form, as a part of the Supreme Lord. All that is part of internal cleanliness, a clean mind. Okay. That's why Prabhupada says, our Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, is all-embracing. Human civilization should take it very seriously and practice its principles for the peace of the world. So here, there are major themes. Krishna consciousness is all-embracing. It has all the tenets of other religions and more. Right? Religion is just a subset of this Vedic culture. But it can be a diversion also. So Krishna consciousness is all-embracing, and it will bring about ultimate peace of the world. And this is what people want. That's why they started the United Nations, to have peace in the world. Okay. So let's just go over what we discussed. We discussed the 30 points of that differentiate a human being from an animal. And these are qualifications to become a real human being. And we discussed the difference between secular and a secular state and a state in which it's they practice non-sectarianism. Okay, the word secular, which means related to a particular religion, and non-sectarian means not differentiating against any particular religion, not advocating one religion over another. It's not prejudicial toward any sect. And then we discussed that regardless of what religion one believes in or follows, one should practice truthfulness, whether they're Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or any other sect. Everyone should be taught to be truthful. That means if in a particular religion, like Islam, Christianity, Judaism, it says, thou shalt not kill, then you should not make false interpretations of what that means. That means you shouldn't kill anything or anyone. So this principle of regardless of what religion or sect one belongs to, one should be taught to be truthful. And similarly, one should be taught to be merciful. And one should be taught the simple austerity of life, of practices, and ultimately cleanliness. This is very important for all human beings. And when he started talking about the chanting the holy name of the Lord, regardless of differences in linguistic pronunciation, he's recommending chanting Hare Krishna, but there are other bona fide names of the Lord, just like it says Govinda and Gopala, Mukunda. And you could also say Christ. If you say Jesus Christ, you're referring to the Son of God, so that would be a mistake. But Christ is the name of God. It comes from Krishna. Or Allah, which is one attribute of God. He's the greatest. So Krishna has so many names, 1,008 names of Lord Vishnu, right? The Muslims have 99 names for God in the Quran. So any bona fide name of God can be chanted, but Lord Chaitanya specifically recommended the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And if this culture is followed, Krishna consciousness is a culture, it's not a specific religion, then there will be peace in society. Okay, these are the points that we discussed. So next verse is Canto 7, Chapter 11, verse 13. Those who have been reformed by the Garbhodana ceremony and other prescribed reformatory methods, performed with Vedic mantras and without interpretation, and who have been approved by Lord Brahma or Dvijas or twice born. Such brahmanas, kshatriyas, and vaishyas, purified by their family traditions and by their behavior, should worship the Lord, study the Vedas, and give charity. In this system, they should follow the principles of the 4 ashramas: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa. Okay, so the Garbhodana ceremony is a ceremony one performs before trying to conceive a child. It's a specific samskara, and it's very important in order to have good quality children. So Prabhupada writes, after giving a general list of 30 qualifications for one's behavior, Narada Muni now describes the principles of the 4 varnas and 4 ashramas. Okay, so we will finish up after the opening of these.
Yasomati Nandana Bhajavarana Gata Gokula Ranjana Kana Yasomati Nandana Bhajavarana Gata Gokula Ranjana Kana Gopi Padana Dana Madana Manohara Kariya Damana Vidana Amala Harina Mamiya Virasha Vipina Purandara Navina Nagara Bora Vamsi Vadana Suvasa Vadana Padana Sura Kulanashana Nanda Godana Rako Vala Govinda Madhava Navanita Tasvara Sundarananda Gopala Yamuna Tata Chara Gopi Vasana Hara Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Srila Vallabha Vrindavana Natapada Bhakti Vinoda Shaya Yasomati Nandana Bhajavarana Gata Gokula Ranjana Kana Yasomati Nandana Bhajavarana Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshmana Hanuman Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshmana Hanuman Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stotra Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stotra Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Vedanta Sati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Purushottam Kshetra Raghunath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Mahayagna Ki Jai So Prabhupada Transcendental Bhakti Sri Vishnu Yagna Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Mandi Hari Hari Bol All glories to Samudra is Hare Krishna. All glories to Samudra is Hare Krishna. All glories to Samudra is Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
A human being must be trained in the above mentioned 30 qualities. Otherwise, he's not even a human being. Then, among such qualified persons, the Varnashrama process should be introduced. In the Varnashrama system, the first ceremony for purification is Garbhodana, which is performed with mantras at the time of sex for propagating a good child. One who uses a sex life not for sensual pleasures, but only to beget children according to the reformatory method, is also accepted as a brahmachari. One should not waste semen on sensual pleasure, violating the principles of Vedic life. Restraint in sex is possible, however, only when the populace is trained in the above-mentioned 30 qualities. Otherwise, it is not possible. Even if one is born in a family of Dvijas, or twice-born, if they have not followed the reformatory process, he is called a Dvija Bandhu, not one of the twice-born, but a friend of the twice-born. The whole purpose of this system is to create good population. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, when women are polluted, the populace is Varna Shankara. And when the Varna Shankara population increases, the situation of the entire world becomes hellish. Therefore, all the Vedic literatures strongly warn against creating Varna Shankara population. When there is Varna Shankara population, the people cannot be properly controlled for peace and prosperity, regardless of great legislative assemblies, parliaments, and similar bodies. So this is scientific organization of society. From procreation to death, there are samskaras, purificatory rites of passage from one stage of life to another. And in each stage, there's some samskaras are purifying rituals that are performed so that a person refocuses their attention on what is the actual goal of life. So this is very important for ordinary people to have gentle but frequent reminders of where they're going in this life and how to get there. The samskaras are for purification of one's mind in important passages of life, like before birth, at birth, when the child begins to learn, and marriage, and renunciation, and death. I mean, there's different ceremonies that are performed in each stage. And the science of how to have a good population is very important. And it's based on using the procreative process scientifically. So people think, well, science means, you know, how to do experiments in the laboratory, but it has nothing to do with what you do in the bed at night. That's not true. You see, there's no division like that. Science is everything we do and how to do it correctly. That's real science. So the next verse says, for a Brahmana, there are 6 occupational duties. A Kshatriya should not accept charity, but he may perform the other 5 of these duties. A king or Kshatriya is not allowed to levy taxes on Brahmanas, but he may make his livelihood by levying minimal taxes, customs duties, and penalty fines upon other subjects. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains the position of Brahmanas and Kshatriyas as follows. Brahmanas have 6 occupational duties, of which 3 are compulsory, namely, studying the Vedas, worshipping the deity, and giving charity. So, write this down. There are 3 compulsory, means absolutely necessary, duties for brahmanas. 1, study the Vedas. 2, worship the deity. 3, give charity. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. How can brahmanas give charity if they have a vow of poverty? Well, the simple answer is they can do that because they are receiving charity on a regular basis. So therefore, they should give charity. You see? Because he's receiving charity to the common people. Because he's living with the common people. He knows who is worthy of charity. You see? The Brahmanas receive great charity. If you look in Vedic history, kings organized these massive yagyas, like Asmameda yagya, Rajasuya yagya, where there's tremendous amount of charity that's given away. And it's given away to the Brahmanas. So then the Brahmanas have a vow of poverty, so they don't need, like 10,000 cows. They can't even take care of 10,000 cows. So they give away 9,999 of the cows in charity. They only need 1 cow. If they already have 1 cow, they give away all 10,000 cows. You understand? But because they live with the people, the common people, they know who will benefit from the charity. It's not that they're just throwing it away. Right? They know better than the king who needs what, because they're living with the people. Okay? So, the Brahmanas have 3 compulsory duties. They study the Vedas, they worship the deity, and they give charity. By teaching, by inducing others to worship the deity, and by accepting gifts, the Brahmanas receive the necessities of life. So, besides study the Vedas, worship of the deity, and giving charity, they also teach others to worship the deity. And they teach others the Vedic knowledge. And they receive charity. Okay. So in this way, the Brahmanas, because they have the vow of poverty, they give away almost everything they receive, because their needs are minimal. So they can earn a living by teaching Vedas, by teaching worship of the deities, and by either begging or collecting what is thrown away. Like, for example, when there's a harvest of wheat, there's always some wheat left in the field, right? The grains. So some brahmanas, they don't want to beg, so they'll go out and whatever grains are in the field, they'll pick them up, and that's what they'll eat. Right? Okay, so this is confirmed in the Manu Samhita. Stanam tu karmanam asya trini karmani jivaka yajanadaya pane chaiva visuddhacha patigraha. Of the 6 occupational duties of the Brahmanas, 3 are compulsory, namely worship of the deity, study of the Vedas, and the giving of charity. In exchange, a Brahmana should receive charity, and this should be his means of livelihood. A Brahmana cannot take up any professional occupational duty for his livelihood. So therefore, there's no such thing as, I work for Amazon, but I'm a Brahmana. No, the Brahmanas do not work for anybody. Why? Because then they cannot speak the truth. They'll be inhibited from speaking the truth if they're employed by someone. Just like Vidura, he was a Brahmana, but he never accepted anything from his brother Dhritarashtra. nor from Duryodhana. He earned his meager living by begging. Right? So brahmanas can beg, or they can collect things that are thrown away. And they can accept charity, but they give most of the charity away. But they can accept charity. Most brahmanas, real brahmanas, give all the charity away. Like you have the example of Tukaram. He at one point received he had a tremendous amount of success, not just by the mercy of the Lord, of Krishna, and he gave it all away. And his wife was really upset because they were poor, but he was not attached to anything, and he was satisfied with whatever he could get by his humble activities. And mainly his activity was performing Harinama Sankirtan. You know. And also he was forced to do certain things because of his abusive brothers. He would keep night watch of the cows, right, and things like that. And he would do that without any salary. Right. So a brahmana cannot take up any professional occupational duty for his livelihood. The Shastras especially stress that if one claims to be a brahmana, he cannot engage in the service of anyone else. Otherwise, he at once falls from his position and becomes a Sudra. Sudras are people who are employed by others. Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami belonged to a very respectful family, but because they engaged in the service of Nawab Hussain Shah, not even as ordinary clerks, but as ministers, they were ostracized from Brahminical society. This is 500 years ago. Indeed, they became like Mohammedans and even changed their names. They accepted Islamic names. Indeed, they became like Mohammedans and even changed them. Unless a Brahmana is very pure, he cannot accept charity from others. Charity should be given to those who are pure. Even if one is born in a family of Brahmanas, if one acts as a Sudra, one cannot accept charity, for this is strictly prohibited. So what does it mean that a Brahmana is pure? That means that he has a vow of poverty, and therefore he will not accept anything more than his minimal needs. And his minimal needs are very minimal, right? So therefore, he'll virtually give away any charity he receives. This is strictly prohibited. In other words, accepting charity if one is in the service of someone, or one is being paid to do something for somebody else. This is strictly prohibited in this verse by the word apratigraha. What to speak of the lower social orders? Even the Kshatriyas must not accept charity. The king or government may levy taxes upon the citizens in various ways, by revenue duties, customs duties, realization of fines, and so on, provided the king is able to give full protection to his subjects to assure the security of their life and property. So this is the main purpose of a government, is to protect the citizens. Right? If you don't protect the citizens, then you don't have a bona fide government. So this begs the question now. You have certain states in the United States now that have become sanctuary states, where they'll let illegal immigrants stay and they protect them. And illegal immigrants are people who enter the country without following the rules. Like, for example, when you entered the country, what kind of rules did you have to follow before they let you in? What? No, there's more than that. You had to have health check, right? You had to have a background check that you did not commit any crime, right? And a health check makes sure you don't have any major sickness like tuberculosis or things like that, right? You had to go through all that, and it took some time, right? And it cost you money, right? Illegal immigrants, they just walk into the country, They don't go, they can walk in with tuberculosis. They can be criminals. In fact, 300,000 members of MS-13 gang from Guatemala have entered this country. That's like an army of criminals. They're all over the country. And that was permitted by the previous president and his administration. So more than 300,000 people entered the country illegally, but 300,000 are estimated to be members of this MS-13 gang of criminals. So we see the government has to guarantee the protection of the citizens. Otherwise, citizens have, they don't have to pay taxes then because the government's not doing its job. However, unless he is able to give protection, he cannot levy taxes. That's the king or the ruler of a country. However, a king must not levy any tax upon the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas fully engaged in Krishna consciousness. So if you go to the state of Israel today, in Israel, they do not tax the students of the yeshiva. Yeshiva is the religious school. So those students who are full-time students in the yeshiva, they're not taxed. They're not required to go into the army either. And it's usually a sect of Judaism called the Hasidic sect. And this is a problem because when Israel started, there were very few of them, like a few thousand. Now there's like close to 1 million. They also reproduce, they have a philosophy that requires that they should have at least 6 or more children. So now there's 800,000 of them in Israel. They don't go into the army and they're not taxed. Is that a good thing? Well, yeah, because it says here, whether they're genuine Brahmanas or not, that's another issue. But the government cannot tax the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas fully engaged in Krishna consciousness. So that's the qualification, not that they're lazy bums, but they're fully engaged in their Brahminical duties. So this part of the Bhagavatam is explaining the perfect society, the 4 orders of the Varnas, the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishyas, and Sudras, and how they work cooperatively to all progress spiritually and go back to Godhead in this lifetime. The mercantile community, or the Vaishyas, should always follow the directions of the Brahmanas and engage in such occupational duties as agriculture, trade, and protection of cows. For the Sudras, the worker class, the only duty is to accept a master from a higher social order and engage in his service. So, therefore, a description has been given now of the 4 Varnas, the social classes, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. As an alternative, a Brahmana may also take to the Vaishya's occupational duty of agriculture, cow production, or trade. He may depend on that which he has received without begging. He may beg in the paddy field every day. He may collect paddy left in a field by its proprietor, or he may collect food grains left here and there in the shops of grain dealers. These are 4 means of livelihood that may also be adopted by Brahmanas. Among these 4, each of them in succession is better than the one preceding it. So, as we described, Brahmanas can also beg, and if they don't want to beg, they can go and pick up things that are left. Like in the paddy field, there might be some rice left that was not harvested. In the wheat field, there might be some grains of wheat that fell to the ground that are not harvested. So these are other means of livelihood for genuine Brahmanas. A Brahmana is sometimes offered land and cows in charity, and thus for his livelihood he may act in the same way as a Vaishya by cultivating land, giving protection to cows, and trading off his surpluses. A better process, however, is to pick up grains from a field or from a dealer's shop without begging. Okay. Except in a time of emergency, lower persons should not accept the occupational duties of those who are higher. When there is such an emergency, of course, everyone but the Kshatriya may accept the means of livelihood of others. Why does it say except the Kshatriya? We're going to read it now. The occupational duty of a Brahmana should not be accepted by persons in lower social orders, especially Vaishyas and Sudras. For example, an occupational duty of the Brahmana is to teach Vedic knowledge, but unless there is an emergency, this professional duty should not be accepted by the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, or Sudras. Even a Kshatriya cannot accept the duties of a Brahmana unless there is an emergency, and then even if he does so, he should not accept charity from anyone else. Sometimes Brahmanas protest against our Krishna consciousness movement for creating Brahmanas from Europeans, or in other words, from the Malechas and the Yavanas. This movement, however, is here supported in Srimad Bhagavatam. At the present moment, society is in a chaotic condition, and everyone has given up the cultivation of spiritual life, which is especially meant for the Brahmanas. Because spiritual culture has been stopped all over the world, there is now an emergency, and therefore it is now time to train those who are considered lower and condemned, so that they may become Brahmanas and take up the work of spiritual progress. The spiritual progress of human society has been stopped, and this should be considered an emergency. Here is solid support from Narada Muni of the movement known as Krishna consciousness. So we explained yesterday in detail that one's social position in society is not determined by birth. It's determined by qualification and work. So, and the traditional example of that is Jabala. Jabala was born in a very low family, and this is explained in the Jabala Upanishad. And he approached Gautama Muni to become a disciple. And Gautama Muni asked him, what is your gotra? What is your family lineage? So he didn't know. So he goes home and asks his mother. He did not have a father, or at least he didn't know who the father was. And the mother said, unfortunately, she said, I don't know exactly who your father is because I was not leading a good life earlier when I conceived you. So here the boy is in a dilemma. So he goes back to Gautama Muni, and Gautama Muni said, so what is your gotra? He said, I don't know. My mother cannot tell. She doesn't know either. He said, okay, I accept you as my disciple. He said, what? You accept me? He said, yes. So why? He said, because you're a Brahmana. You told the truth. You see? So that's the real Varna system. The corrupted Varna system in modern times is called the caste system, which is not based on quality and work. It's based on janma karma, birth and work. And that of course, in Kali Yuga, the Brahmanas were degraded, and in order to protect their hereditary rights as Brahmanas, there's no such thing as hereditary right of Brahmana, but anyway, in their mind, their hereditary rights, they changed one word of the Shastra from guna karma to janma karma and created the false caste system that's practiced in modern society. The real Varna system is based on quality and work, and the proof of that is Narada Muni also. Narada Muni was born in a very low family. He didn't have a father. He had a mother, a single parent, and she was very poor, and she was a maidservant. But because he associated with genuine devotees when he was only 5 years old, during a 4-month period, he became a devotee also, by association. And in his next life, he became Narada Muni, the son of Brahma, and the greatest saint in the universe. Yes?
Prabhuji, one story is there, and in the story, I'm not able to get the answer out of it. What is the real answer about the truthfulness? So stories like that, which is told many times, that there is a saint person sitting, and one person came running, and he said to saint that some people are after me, please save me. And the saint allows him to go and hide in his hut. And people who are after him came there and asked the saints.
You mean some bandits?
Bandits, yeah.
Yes, dacoits.
Dacoits. And they asked saint, like, where is that person? Did you see that some person from here? So in that situation, and that saint...
Well, the dacoits said, Sadhuji, they said, you have made a vow of honesty.
Yeah.
Therefore you must tell us the truth.
Yeah, yeah. You have to tell us the truth. So in that case, what is the truthness is?
Well, in this particular case, he told the truth. Then they captured the person they were looking for, who was wealthy, and they extracted, what they were looking for, money, and then they killed him. So when the saint later on died, instead of going to Swarga, Yamaraj came and took him to hell. And the saint was, what's going on here? He said, you're guilty of murder. He said, what? I never killed anyone. He said, no, you caused the death of this person. He said, well, I just told the truth. He said, but when by telling the truth you endanger the life of another person, that is not the truth. And then cause the death of another person, right? So there are certain circumstances. See, everything is not black and white. Usually we want everything to be black and white, but we cannot be a party to the death of another person. So sometimes to protect other people, we might not exactly tell the precise truth. That's to protect someone. Like if someone was looking to kill your daughter, and you know where your daughter is, would you tell him where she is? Knowing that this person will kill your daughter? Huh? No, obviously you wouldn't. You would protect your daughter. See, you have different responsibilities. One is you have to tell the truth. The other is you have to protect your daughter. So which one takes precedence? You see? So we have to be very careful in practicing the principles of Dharma. You cannot follow one principle and because of that violate another one. So there are different situations, and sometimes it's confusing. That's why there's such a thing as gurus, spiritual masters, to help us understand in those difficult, contrary situations where, like Arjuna, he doesn't want to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra because he has family members on both sides. So he's refusing to fight. And Krishna explains to him that, look, you can't refuse to fight. Your duty is to protect the principles of Dharma. Now, if there are some members of your family on the side of the people who are violating the principles of Dharma, that's not an excuse for you not to fight. Right? He said, your duty, your moral obligation is to protect the principles of Dharma. That is superior to family allegiance or anything else like that. So, and more importantly, Krishna himself is asking Arjuna to fight. Krishna is the highest principle of morality, right? So if he's asking directly, then there's no question of what is the right path to follow. And this brings up a fundamental existential question for everyone is, we live in a society that has its laws. Like previously there was a law against abortion. Now abortion is permitted by the government. Now let's say you're a Christian and a person comes to your shop and wants you to do something for them let's say you're a doctor and a client comes and abortion is legal in the United States and they want you to perform an abortion and you say, no, I can't do it. They say, why? He said, well, first of all, you can go to another doctor. I said, well, no, I came to you. Why you can't do it? He said, well, it's against my religion. I said, no, that's not acceptable. And then they sue the doctor, right? Because he's refusing them the service that he's obligated to do. Well, this is a question of consciousness now. Which law am I going to follow? The law of God or the law of the state? When the law of the state violates the law of God, you see. And in the case Krishna and Arjuna, Krishna convinces Arjuna that he must follow what Krishna says, not follow what his own mind is saying due to his mundane morality. So you see how laws and morality is a fluid thing in the material world. It's not fluid in the spiritual life. It's fixed. But there are certain exceptions. Not that the exception does not violate the law. The exception supports the law. Like, for example, if you make a vow of being truthful, and then you're put in a spot where if you tell the truth, someone else is going to die. What is your obligation in that situation? Well, according to Shastric evidence, you're not obliged to tell the truth in that situation because it endangers the life of another person. And this is already discussed in the Shastra. It's not some new situation. It already was discussed, and the example was given. Go ahead.
So, like, if I see somebody murdering somebody,
yeah,
and the police ask me, did you see him murdering the other person?
Jai Shri Radha Nilamadhava ki jai. Namo Haribol.
So in that case, what shall I do?
Well, okay, let's say they threaten you. So if you don't tell the truth, then we'll kill you and your family.
It's a police asking me.
Oh, the police are asking.
Asking
okay.
me, like, and they know I was present on the
okay,
crime
so why
scene.
are you hesitating? Why are you hesitating?
If I tell, okay, he did it, then they may hang the person.
Oh, they will.
Means I will be the cause of his death. Then.
Well, you don't know that the person is going to receive due process under the law.
No, whatever it may be, but eventually he may be hanged, and if he's hanged, then so I am the cause for his
No, okay,
hanging.
now this is a different situation. Now let me explain it to you. If that person is proven to be the perpetrator of murder, then they should be hanged, according to the Vedas. Because if they're punished in this life, then the karmic result in the next life is alleviated. If they're not punished in this life, then the karmic result in the next life is more severe. So if you don't tell the truth in that situation, you get some of the karmic reaction. Okay? Yes?
So, Prabhuji, in your doctor example, what that doctor is supposed to do?
Well, he should follow his religious conviction.
But he got sued, right? As you said.
Well, he could be sued, maybe, But, he's not saying you can't have an abortion. He's saying, go and see another doctor. I can't do it because it's against my religious belief.
Second question, as you have mentioned about that daughter example, if someone is killing daughter, then go by duty. So our duty is more important than these 4 universal principles? I'm a little confused just to getting clarification.
Well, your duty is to protect your daughter, right? Now, the question is, which duty takes precedence? Protecting your daughter from being murdered or telling the truth? Well, if you tell the truth, you're going to be a party to murder, right? So therefore, in that particular example, that example does not alter the principle of telling the truth. It's a case in which you would be a party to murder if you did tell the truth. So you avoid it. You have to protect your daughter in that case.
But if the cause is not any murder or something, it's your...
Okay, let's look like this. You're trying to smuggle something into India. You get caught in immigration. And they said, does this thing belong to you? Now, you can tell the truth, yes. Or you could say, no, I don't know where it came from. Someone must have put it in my bag. and you're trying to lie to get out of responsibility, right? So you would have to tell the truth in that situation. Otherwise, you're going to tell a lie. Okay, even though it might be detrimental for you, but you deserve to be punished. The punishment is good for you because you tried to do something illegal. Okay? We have to discuss these things, and sometimes it's confusing, but it has to be based on shastric evidence. It can't just be based on opinions. Right? So therefore, the history of Jabal is very significant because it's factual, shastric evidence. And Jabal, and then the history of that Brahmin who Yamaraj is going to take to hell because he told the truth and caused the death of someone. Okay. Now there's another example. For example, there was a person named Mandak Muni. When he was a little kid, he pierced an ant with a blade of grass and killed it. Right? So fast forward, after many, many years, he dies. When he dies, Yamaraj comes and is going to take him to hell for killing that ant. And Mandak Muni is like, what? He said, I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just a little kid. He said, no. So then Mandak Muni, who's a very powerful yogi, he cursed Yamaraj to take birth as a Sudra in his next life. And he took birth as, I think, Vidura. And from that point on, a rule was made that that children are not responsible for what they do until they become 14 years old. And they have similar laws like that in America. Not that they derived it from the Vedas, maybe, but a child is not responsible until they reach 14 years old. So you should not severely punish them for something that they do wrong. Because unless you know your responsibilities, it's hard to hold a person, responsible. It's just like if someone is crazy and they commit a murder, they don't necessarily execute that person because they were not in the right state of mind. It's called, there's 2 points. One is they're not in the right state of mind to know what is right and wrong when they committed a crime. Either they were on drugs or something. So they might not be executed. It might be less than execution for them. Yeah.
It happened with me. I was traveling, I was driving a car, and I was using a cell phone.
Yeah.
And police stopped me. And the first question they asked me, that did you know the law? Right. That you cannot use the cell phone?
Yeah, and you said?
I told them yes. And they immediately gave me a ticket.
Right. Yeah, but you told the truth, right? You could have lied. They probably would have given you a ticket anyway, but... Yeah. No, telling the truth in a situation like that is the right thing to do. It's not the wrong thing.
Later on, I was thinking I should have told something else.
Well, one time, Prabhupada and his disciple, Brahmananda, were coming from, I think, Africa to India. So in Mumbai, the immigration people stopped the disciple, Brahmananda, and he had a recorder, a tape recorder, a little expensive one. And they said, what's the value of this? So now it was a used tape recorder. It wasn't new. But he gave the value of the new tape recorder, and then they charged him tax based on the new value, the value he declared. And later on, Prabhupada said he didn't have to tell him it was new, right? He could have just said it's a used one, So Brahmananda, he told the truth in a sense, but it was actually a used tape recorder. It wasn't a new one, but they were penalized on the basis of the full value. So, anyway, you see, there's always some type of extenuating factor that may influence the situation, but that does not alter the rule. The exception does not alter the rule. Right. And sometimes they're not genuine exceptions. So all the exceptions have also been explained in the Vedas. It's not that there's some aspect that's never been covered by the Vedas. The Vedas are complete. All the exceptions are and any new exception is not accepted. Right?
Because people can make new exceptions.
Yeah,
like
they can make new exceptions.
Or their mind condition, they can make.
Exactly. Okay, well, I think we'll stop there. We'll continue next week on Chapter 7, Canto 7, Chapter 11, and we are now on verse number 18 to 20. Hare Krishna. Thank you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.